Good morning. The chapter for today is the Composite Culture, Bhakti Moment, Sufism, and Influence of Christianity on Indian Society. Let's see the subheadings of the chapter. What is meant by composite culture? Sources to reconstruct religious thoughts and growth of composite culture. The Bhakti Movement. Significance and impact of the Bhakti movement. Sufism. Doctrines or the main principles of Sufism. Influence of Christianity on Indian society. What is meant by composite culture? The word culture denotes the ideas, customs, beliefs, arts, and other intellectual achievements gained and shared by a particular society. When we talk of India's composite culture, we in a way are suggesting that our culture is made up of many elements drawn from several different traditions: classical Hindu tradition and the Islamic and Christian thoughts and beliefs. In fact, the phrase composite culture applies to cultures of the most of the countries. There is no culture in the world, says Jawaharlal Nehru, which is absolutely unaffected by any other culture. Culture is bound to get a little mixed up when though the basic element of a particular national culture remains dominant. Factors responsible for the emergence of composite culture: assimilation of ideas and cultures. When the Hindus and Muslims began living together, something new, something that was neither Muslim nor Hindu, but a mixture of the two was born. It was impossible for them to remain isolated from each other, and both were influenced mutually by each other's faith and ideas. Sufism and the Bhakti movement. The spirit of tolerance, the desire to assimilate each other's ideas and customs, and wider outlook of the Hindu and Muslim saints gave impetus to two religious movements: Sufism among the Muslims and the Bhakti cult among the Hindus. Bhakti, that is devotion to God, was not altogether new in India, nor did it owe its origin to Islam. What really happened was that this movement received impetus at a time when Hindus were politically subdued. They began to find solace in prayer to the God. The aim of Sufis in India was to purify Islam and give it a deeper interpretation. The seeds scattered by Sufi and Bhakti saints produced a deep sense of equality and brotherhood in India. Christian values. According to popular tradition, St. Thomas came to South India in the 1st century AD. The gospel of Jesus Christ preached by St. Thomas attracted many people in India. But the most significant developments in this direction began to take place in 16th and 17th centuries with the height of Portuguese power in India. The Portuguese brought Roman Catholic priests with them in 16th century. In Christian thought, human beings have an equality before God. The values that make man noble are found in Sermon on the Mount, especially such values as forgiveness, love, and purity of heart. The Christian missionaries had much to contribute to the growth and advancement of the composite culture in India. Impact of composite culture. Let's see the impact of composite culture on various fields of life, such as arts and architecture, music and literature, religious beliefs, customs, and rituals. Architecture. The architecture revealed now a distinctive style blending the Persian with Indian forms of architectures. It gave rise to a new type of Indo-Islamic architecture. Sufi Moment. The Hindu ideas of yoga and Vedanta had a definite contribution to the development of Islamic philosophy in many ways. The Sufi Moment provided a common platform for both the Muslims and the Hindus. Impact on music and painting. Music and painting also showed a blending of Persian and Indian ideas. Abul Fazl's Akbarnama contains a number of paintings depicting customs and rituals of those days. Painters during Akbar's reign illustrated the text of Mahabharata besides illustrating the Akbarnama and other Persian works. Food and dresses. The Turkish and the Mughal rulers had to modify their food and dresses to suit Indian conditions and climate. Similarly, the upper and middle class Hindus were obliged to modify their food, the dress code, and the social customs in order to get on well with Muslim aristocracy. Sources to reconstruct religious thoughts and ideas leading to the growth of composite culture. Main sources are Bijak, compilation of the compositions of Kabir. It is a compilation of compositions of the Sant Kabir. The Mahatma Puran Sahib's commentary on Bijak is supposed to be the best. This published work is based on manuscript available at Kabir Panthi's Burhanpur Gaddi in Madhya Pradesh. The term Bijak is derived from the Hindi word bija, the seeds. In the context of Kabir's works, Bijak means a document containing the teacher's sacred texts. Bijak has 11 sections or parts, the most important among them being Shabd, Gyan Chautisa, Basant, Hindola, and Saki. Kabir was the most important of the disciples of Ramananda, who preached the doctrine of bhakti to people of all castes and to the men and women both. Kabir was perhaps the most outstanding mystic of those times. There is in his compositions a denunciation of life's sense pleasures and formal religious rituals. The god he worshipped was formless one called by many names, especially Rama and Rahim. He denounced caste distinctions and believed in the brotherhood of man. He believed that the ultimate goal of human soul was unity with the God. He had both Hindus and Muslims as his followers. Guru Granth Sahib. A popular verse describes Guru Nanak Dev, the founder of Sikh Panth, as a guru for the Hindus and Pir for the Muslims. Guru Angad, the second Guru, developed the Gurumukhi script to preserve the founder's composition for the future generations. Adi Granth. The fifth Guru Arjun Dev compiled the Adi Granth, which is a vast collection of sermons and hymns of the 5 Sikh Gurus, Guru Nanak, Guru Angad, Guru Amardas, Guru Ramdas, and his own Vanis. To this great collection were added the devotional hymns of a few other saints like Kabir, Namdeo, Raidasa, and Baba Farid. Besides being the holy book, the Adi Granth is considered a valuable record that throws light on religious, social, and cultural conditions in northwestern India during 15th and 16th centuries. Guru Granth Sahib. The 9th Guru Tegh Bahadur composed many devotional songs which were added to the Adi Granth by his son, the 10th Guru Gobind Singh. The 10th Guru announced the end of personal guruship and named Adi Granth as a Guru Granth Sahib. Of all the holy books, the Guru Granth Sahib is the most revered by the Sikhs. It is looked upon the very embodiment of the Guru. It is the divine word, the only ever living Guru, which represents in a high degree of India's whole spiritual heritage. Their teachings. Guru Nanak Dev and all other Sikh Gurus and saints like Kabir, Namdeo, and Bal Farid laid great emphasis on purity of character as the first condition for approaching God. They strongly denounced caste distinctions and preached the gospel of universal brotherhood. Ajmer Sharif Dargah. Sufism was a liberal reform movement within Islam. Sufism had its origin in Iran. Of the Sufi orders called silsilas, the two acquired significant influence in northern India during the 13th and 14th centuries. They were the Chishti silsila and Sohrawardi silsila. Hazrat Muhyiddin, the founder of Chishti order, had come to India in 1192. After having stayed in Lahore and Delhi for some time, he at last shifted to Ajmer. After his death in 1236, his devotees celebrated the annual Urs festival at Ajmer. He did not write any book. His fame rose because of his deep desire for union with God. Many stages recognized in the spiritual path that Sufi is required to walk along. Main stages are Talab, that is deep desire for union with God, Ishq, that is genuine love of God, Fana, that is destruction of ego, Hayrat, that is amazement, total devotion to God and brotherhood of man. Sufis laid emphasis on devotion to God. They stressed inner purity and believed in the universal brotherhood of man. The main attraction of the annual Urs festival is the Qalandars from the Mehtab, who as friends and admirers of Garib Nawaz. The Sufi saint who blessings on the poor go all the way from Delhi every year and offer colorful chadars, that is bed sheets, on the dargah of the Muhyiddin Chishti. Gold and silver threads are deftly woven on the colorful chadars. Saint Francis Assisi Church, Kochi. The church is a place where Christians meet to pray together. Like the mosque and the Jewish synagogue, space is provided in the church for congregational worship. In 1498, Vasco da Gama, who discovered the sea route to India, landed at Calicut near Kozhikode on Malabar coast. It was Alfonso de Albuquerque who laid the foundation of Portuguese power in India. He was appointed governor of Portuguese affairs in India. He was allowed by Raya of Cochin to build a fort at Kochi. Within this fort, they constructed a church that had wooden structure. The wooden structure converted into a building made of bricks and pieces of stone. Under the Portuguese flag started a vigorous age of European missions. Zealous Catholics thought they had a mission to convert the people of East into their faith. The pioneers were the Franciscans. The Portuguese governor Francisco de Almeida was allowed by Raja to convert the wooden structure into the buildings made of bricks and stone. The new church was ready by the year 1516. It was dedicated to Saint Anthony. Commercial interest drew the Dutch also to India. They captured Kochi and established a factory there in 1663. Now the control of the church passed on to them. But the Dutch were Protestants, whereas the Portuguese were zealous Catholics. The Dutch demolished Catholic churches, but church at Kochi escaped the destruction. It became the official church of the Dutch. The Kochi church gets transformed into the Church of South India, CSI. In 1795, the British captured Kochi. The Dutch, however, of their own free will, handed over the church to Anglican community. It became a protected monument in 1923, but continued to be owned by North Kerala Diocese of Church of South India, CSI. Its historic merit. The church has historic and aesthetic merit both. There are many types of services, the baptism, marriages, etc., that the church provided, and their record could be found in church register from 1751 to 1804. For more than 40 years, it was maintained in the handwriting of the minister of the church, Predicant Cornelis. During 1930s, the leaves of the register were repaired by handwriting experts in London. At present, only their photocopy and not the original leaves could be examined by persons visiting the church. The clock on this church was erected in the year 1923 in the memory of Hal Harrison Jones, the then managing director of Aspinwall and Company. There, in its premises, is set atop a monument or a war memorial in the memory of residents of Cochin who fell during the First World War. The Bhakti Moment. The word Bhakti means devotion to God. The Bhakti Cult, a reform movement in Hinduism, laid emphasis on devotion to God. It originated in the 9th century AD in South India when Shankaracharya brought about a revival in Hinduism. The Bhakti movement in South India was spearheaded by Ramanujacharya and Madhavacharya. The principal deities worshipped by apostles of Bhakti cult are Shiva, Shakti and Vishnu through his two most popular incarnations, Rama and Krishna. Many other devotees focused on a formless God, Nirguna Bhakti. They, especially Kabir and Guru Nanak, attracted a large following. Important features of the Bhakti cult. They preach that God is one and must be worshipped with love and devotion. One can attain salvation through bhakti or devotion to God. All men are equal before God, and the dignity of a man depends on his actions and not on the privileges of birth. Religious rites, rituals, and ceremonies are futile, and man can reach God only through absolute surrender to Him. They emphasize the need for Guru to lead a person to the realization of God. Sant Jnaneshwar. The Bhakti movement in Maharashtra ran parallel to that in North that had seen a series of religious thinkers and reformers. In Maharashtra, it sprang up with the teachings of Jnaneshwar, who was born in 1275 at Appagaon, a place on the bank of river Godavari. Jnaneshwar was inspired by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. His commentary called Jnaneshwari on Bhagavad Gita occupies a prominent place in the history of Marathi literature. His religious poems giving expression to his spiritual experience are called Abhangas. Jnaneshwar condemned the caste system. He denounced idol worship and useless rituals. He defined bhakti as that which one thinks of nothing except of gods. His patron god was Vittoba, who is regarded as the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. He made the Vittoba temple at Pandharpur the center of his activities. His followers were called the Varkaris. Sant Kabir. According to tradition, he was born in 1398 AD of Brahmin widow who abandoned the child near a tank in Varanasi. He was rescued and brought up by a Muslim weaver Neeru and his wife Neena. His main teachings are as follows. He denounced idol worship and meaningless rituals and pilgrimages to holy places. He condemned caste distinctions and supremacy of priestly class. He emphasized the equality of religions by describing Hindus and Muslims as pots made of the same clay. To him, Ram and Allah temple and mosque were the same. Devotion to God was regarded as an effective means of salvation. One must have a pure heart free from hypocrisy to reach God. As we have already mentioned, his teachings are recorded in Bijak. His followers are called Kabir Panthis. Guru Nanak Dev. Guru Nanak was born in 1469 at Talwandi near Lahore, which is now in Pakistan. He was in communion with Supreme Lord, who entrusted him with the mission of spreading the glory of the name. Guru Nanak emphasized the concept of one God, Ek Omkar, whose name is eternal truth. He advised people to recite Satnam or the true name. He condemned idol worship and preached the gospel of universal brotherhood. He exhorted the Hindus and the Muslims to forget their differences because he believed in equality of all religions. Mirabai. She was a Rajput princess married into ruling family of Mewar, Udaipur. A devotee of Lord Krishna since childhood, she continued to devote her whole time to the Lord's worship even after her marriage. She incurred her husband's displeasure and eventually their marriage broke up. She wandered from place to place singing her devotional songs. One of her hymns goes thus: People say Meera has gone mad. I have myself become the eternal maidservant of my Narayana. Meera reached Dwaraka, where she composed many songs in Gujarati. Next to Narsi Mehta, she is regarded as the greatest figure to contribute to devotional literature in Gujarati. She had Raidas as her guru. Her message was there is but one means to experience Lord's divine presence, that is Bhakti. Significance and impact of the Bhakti Moment. Harmony. The Bhakti Moment became popular in the whole of India. The saints and reformers offered the people a simple religion devoid of complicated rituals which required only sincere devotion to God. They tried to reform Hinduism and also brought about harmony between the two major communities, the Hindus and Muslims. Their message of religious toleration made a profound impression on several Muslim rulers. They attracted many devotees from both the communities and exercised a stabilizing influence on society. Equality. They tried to evolve a new social order by denouncing caste distinctions. They exposed the futility of external rituals and set free the minds of people from domination of priests. Thus, the movement brought in not only religious reforms but also social changes. Regional languages, devotional literature. Most of the Bhakti reformers preached in people's mother tongue. It provided an impetus for the development of regional languages such as Hindi, Bengali, Marathi, Maithili, Gujarati, etc. These compositions rank very high in devotional literature of the world. Sufism. Sufism was the ideological manifestation of some of the basic beliefs of Islam: belief in one God, concept of universal brotherhood, and rejection of rituals and caste distinctions. The Sufis never set out to found a new religion. Their source of inspiration was the Quran and life of the Prophet Muhammad. Their aim was to purify Islam and give it a deeper mystical interpretation. Sufism had its origin in Iran. It was introduced in India in the 11th century AD. Sheikh Ismail of Lahore was the first Sufi saint who preached the teachings of Sufism in India. His disciple Sheikh al-Bin Usman Ali Ujwaisi was considered the founder of Sufi cult in India. The Chishti Silsila or order. The most famous of Sufi saints in India was Hazrat Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, who founded the Chishti order. As we have already mentioned, he had come to India in 1192. He finally settled in Ajmer, which became the center of his activities. After his death in 1236, his devotees celebrated an annual Urs festival at Ajmer. Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia. Another important Sufi saint was Nizamuddin Aulia, who belonged to Chishti order. He was born at Badayun in 1238. By the time he attained an age of 12 years, he had studied not only the Holy Quran but also the whole of Arabic grammar and had become a distinguished scholar in the tradition of Prophet Muhammad. Besides, he was a scholar of Islamic jurisprudence and astronomy. Caliph of the Chishti Sheikhs. In the year 1257, Nizamuddin had been to Ajodan, where he became a disciple of Baba Farid. After he came back to Delhi, he ascended the throne of Caliph of the Chishti Sheikhs. Away from the large crowds, Nizamuddin then received a divine revelation that he should live a solitary life away from a whole crowd of people. He built his kanka in a village outside the city, where he lived for more than 60 years, lost sometimes in meditation and on other occasions reciting the holy scriptures or sacred songs. The kanka turned into a place of pilgrimage, being visited by Nizamuddin's disciples and followers until now. Nazaruddin Chirag Delhavi was a spiritual successor of Nizamuddin Aulia. Many of his disciples reached great spiritual heights. His main beliefs and preaching. Nizamuddin believed that one could embrace God within his life by talab and fana. He did not believe in discrimination on the grounds of religion, caste, or sex. He said, "Be generous to the needy, the poor, the exploited, and the oppressed." Nizamuddin Aulia is being called by many names such as Mehboob-e-Ilahi, the beloved of the God, and Jag Ujjara, the light of the world. Doctrines or the main principles of Sufism. The main principles are as follows. One could reach God through love and devotion and not through blind observance of rituals. God is one and all people are the children of God. Love of God meant love for humanity. They believed in the equality of all human beings and in the universal brotherhood of man. They stressed inner purity and self-discipline as essential conditions for gaining knowledge of God. Impact of Sufism. The liberal ideas and unorthodox principles of Sufism had a profound influence on Indian society and poets of the period. Amir Khusro was one of them. First, the Sufi saints preached in the language of people, and this promoted the growth of vernacular literature. Second, the liberal outlook of the Sufis proved helpful in bridging the gap between the followers of Hinduism and Islam. It encouraged Hindu-Muslim unity to a considerable extent. Influence of Christianity on Indian society. Christianity was introduced in India many centuries earlier than coming of Europeans to India. Saint Thomas had planted 7 congregations in the Chera kingdom. These grew slowly and made their influence felt in the surrounding areas. In 345 AD, a significant event took place. A group of 400 immigrants belonging to 72 families from East Syria came to India under the leadership of merchant from Cana, whom the Syrians call Naye Thaman. These immigrants reached Kranganore and were granted certain privileges by local ruler Sheraman Perumal. They settled in the land and intermingled with the local Christian community. Following Naye Thaman, several priests visited Kerala from churches in Persia. In 1498, Vasco da Gama, who discovered the sea route to India, landed at Calicut, Kozhikode on Malabar coast. Within a period of 150 years, the Portuguese established a commercial empire on Indian soil. The ardent Catholic missionaries from Portugal, as we have already referred to them, took the majority of St. Thomas Christians into the Catholic Church. The cathedral at Mylapore and many other Catholic churches on western coast were built by Portuguese missionaries in India. Francis Xavier's mission and activities in India. Francis Xavier, born in 1506 at Navarre in Spain, was a pioneering Roman Catholic missionary. He was one of the founders of the Society of Jesus. He taught many regions of Asia, but as a missionary, his most notable success was only in India. Francis Xavier arrived in Goa in 1542. There he was invited to head St. Paul's College a pioneer seminary where priests were trained. This institution became later the first Jesuit headquarters in Asia. He soon left the seminary. Missionary of great eminence. For the next 3 years, he had been a Christian preacher in India among the pearl fishers along the east coast of southern India, as well as in the north areas of the Cape Comorin. His preachings made him immensely popular among the Paravas, Katesars, Kadiyars, and Mukuwars. He had become a missionary of great eminence and respectability among the Patamkatiyars. Their family members had been the head of Fisher Coast. Preaching human values. Francis Xavier raised money for the construction of nearly 40 churches along the eastern coast. For this, he received a large donation from local headmen as well as rulers of the regions. The most important among the churches were the St. Stephen's Church, Coimbatore. He prepared a summary of principles of Christian church in the form of questions and answers. The principles included human values such as humility before God, mercy, purity of heart and love for enemies as well as friends. Sought an audience with the King of Travancore. Francis Xavier sought an audience with the King of Travancore, with the hope of converting the king and his subjects to Christian church. This was not a satisfying venture. He then visited Sri Lanka. The visit left him dissatisfied. He then travelled eastwards. In 1545, he went on a journey to Celebes, an island in Indonesia. Familiarized himself with the lower classes. Xavier's successor priest had attempted to convert rulers, nobles, and people of high social rank to Christianity. They thought this would have an automatic and immediate impact on ordinary people. Francis Xavier, on the other hand, had initially familiarized himself with the lower classes. Later, of course, he sought audience with the kings and rulers as well. Love for children born out of wedlock. His primary mission was to restore Portuguese settlers' faith in Christian values. Many children were born of parents, Portuguese sailors, and Indian women who were not legally married at that time. Francis Xavier gave such children instructions in the beliefs of Christian Church. In order to save the child from the slur of being called an illegitimate child, he tried to see that the child's parents united themselves in holy matrimony. Francis Xavier died in 1552. His embalmed body became the object of holy pilgrimages. Missionaries Contribution. The missionaries made a great contribution to the advancement of education in India. They also set up hospitals and orphanages for the helpless and needy in society. They focused people's attention on some major evils rampant in Indian society, such as the practice of child marriage, polygamy, the Parda system, and Devadasi system. In brief, the missionaries brought about a radical change in the social and religious outlook of people in India.